Al-Fatiha. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Maliki yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdinas siratal mustaqim. Siratal ladzina an'amta 'alayhim ghayril maghdubi 'alayhim waladdallin. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وبه نستعين. ثم الصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد
وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين، لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين، أرواحنا له فداء. أما بعد، فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وما لنا ألا نتوكل على الله وقد هدانا سبلنا ولنصبرن على ما آذيتمونا وعلى الله فيتوكل المتوكلون. صدق الله العلي العظيم.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. First and foremost, I give my condolences to each of you on the occasion which we have come to commemorate, and that is the martyrdom of Imam Hussein, his Ahlul Bayt, and his companions. As we are coming closer towards the actual day in which the tragedy of Karbala, the tragedy of the martyrdom of the grandson of Rasulullah has taken place, I want to kind of wrap up the discussion that we began since the beginning of Muharram. And our objective was to discuss the mission of Imam Hussein alayhi wasalam, why in fact he rose up or actually engaged with the politics of the time, and particularly of Yazid, which led to his martyrdom. And there were several missions which we outlined because, of course, the plight of Imam Hussein, the mission of Imam Hussein, was not one-dimensional, but it had multiple aspects. And so we began simply with that objective and mission that Imam Hussein alayhi wasallam, he mentioned himself when he began to leave from Medina to Mecca, and then eventually on to Karbala. He stated that he is leaving in order to correct the ummah of his grandfather. He is leaving in order to do amr bil ma'ruf wa nahy anil munkar, to enjoin good and to forbid the wrong. This was the, you could say, the core, the kernel of his mission. But in order to accomplish that mission, or in order to bring that mission, which he's stating, to its fruition, there are a lot of other things which come into play, which also we can consider as his mission, his objective. In order to help us understand this mission, we focus mainly on two verses within the Quran. That is verse 10 and 11 of Surah Ibrahim, in other words, chapter 14, verse 10 and verse 11. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in this particular chapter in general, and in this verse, these two verses itself, he outlines the mission of all of the prophets. And in addition, it includes the mission of those who walk in the footsteps of the Prophet, such as the Imams. Their mission, again, was to present Tawheed. Their mission was to, as the overall objective of Surah Al-Ibrahim, as some of the commentators they state, that one of the focal points of Surah Al-Ibrahim is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has delegated imams, delegated prophets, delegated leaders in order to take mankind out of darkness into light. And in order to do that, Imam Hussein alayhi wasallam clearly says, I'm going to correct the ummah and I'm going to do amr bil ma'ruf wa nahy anil munkar. This in itself, when you look, it goes hand in hand with the objective of all of the prophets, to take mankind out of darkness, whether it be the darkness of oppression, the darkness of ignorance, the darkness of, again, spiritual deficiency, into the light of Iman, of faith, of knowledge, of justice. So Imam Hussein, he had this objective. And in order to accomplish that, we mentioned several other objectives that the Imam had, which we learned from verse 10 and 11 of Surah Ibrahim. One is to show and to be an example of true leadership. Because verse 10 and 11, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He presents us with a dialogue. And that dialogue is that of the Prophet stating and calling the people towards religion and understanding Tawheed, understanding the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, reflecting upon, again, therein, Ma'ad, the hereafter, the day of judgment. And in response to that, those who denied the authority or they questioned the authority of the prophets, they said, فَأْتُونَا بِسُلْطَانٍ مُبِينٍ. So bring a clear authority over us. And we mentioned that authority, sultan, can be of two types. Either of spiritual authority, as many of the commentators they state that the Sultan al-Mubin means to bring miracles. Show us a miracle that is so powerful that we have no choice but to accept your authority and your claim. There's also another possibility, as some of the Mufassirin they state, is that Sultan al-Mubin means political and social authority, meaning that your power, your political power, should be so strong that, again, there's no choice but us to follow and fall in line with what you've established. Because many people there used to, if you look at a lot of the societies and trend within societies, that most people who come to power, they wield some sort of political power, and it's not always the most just of means that they take control. But once they take control, then people submit. You have a couple people who are unhappier here or there, but then they put such either a way of thinking, or they put such, or laws, they'll put them in such an order that, yes, either people are afraid to speak up, or they just get assimilated. So, well, there's no need to try to change things. So this is the challenge. He said, if you are from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if you are claiming that we should follow you, then bring us this power, this clear authority that either is so miraculous we will be blown out of our mind, or your political power, your grip is so strong that no one can change what you've set forth. And in response, the Prophet says, first and foremost, he says, In nahnu, or they say, in nahnu illa basharun mislukum. وَمَا كَانَ لَنَا أَن نَأْتِيَكُمْ بِسُلْطَانٍ إِلَّا بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ. Yes, we are human beings just like you. وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ يَمُنَّ عَلَى مَن يَشَاءُ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ. However, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He blesses some of His servants. I'm just giving a general overview. I know we discussed this several times, but I'm giving this general overview because one of the questions that we had also during the question and answer session is that, okay, we've heard all of these things about leadership and appropriate leadership, the mission of Imam Hussein. Part of it is to exemplify what leadership is, to exemplify what it means to be a true servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because again, in order for Imam Hussein to accomplish the mission which he set out to, in order to correct the ummah, in order to do amr bil ma'ruf, to enjoin good and to forbid what is wrong, he had to set the example of true leadership. He had to set the example of what it means to be a true servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because it is this state of servitude, at least, that will distinguish the Prophet from others. It will distinguish those who are in a position, or should be in a position of leadership, from others who should not be in that position. When you have two individuals that they say, well, I'm a leader and this is another leader, how do we know which one to follow? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's giving us a criterion by which to follow. وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ يَمُنُّ عَلَى مَن يَشَاءُ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ. So this comes in response to that question that we had. It was a very good question. So we're learning this. So how do we apply this? How do we apply this to our lives? What practical lesson can we get out of this? That, okay, we know what the criterion is. That individual must be a servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. First of all, either he's delegated by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as the verse begins, قَالَتْ لَهُمْ رُسُلُهُمْ. Delegated, such as the prophets, such as the imams. Or in fact, which we will also connect to that group of individuals who may not be directly delegated by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as the Prophet and Imams are, but by a criterion which the Imams, which the Prophet and Imams have set up themselves. By stating that in the time of ghaiba, in the time of the occultation, then you follow those who know. You follow those who have knowledge of the Quran. Those who have knowledge of the sayings of Ahlul Bayt. And this is directly from their saying, meaning the ulama. And they don't say just follow the ulama blindly. They give a criterion. That individual must be someone who, again, he exemplifies servitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He has to be someone who does not follow his nafs, his low desires. In fact, the Imams, they warn, they say, if you see someone, yes, who appears that he has knowledge of the Quran, who appears that he has knowledge of the statements of Ahlul Bayt alayhim afdalu salatu wasalam, and this is one of the renowned hadith and statements of Ahlul Bayt. It is actually the hadith that is often used as the criterion for establishing who is a mujtahid or marja that one can follow. When you open the book of Practical Laws of Islam, there are certain traits and characteristics mentioned of which scholars can one follow. And one of the things they say is that someone, again, he has to have knowledge of the Quran and Sunnah. They say he's a mujtahid. Say he cannot be someone who is after wealth or power, cannot be someone who is committing major sins. He has to be just. But this is coming almost verbatim from the hadith which the Imam is explaining. And in that hadith, he said, don't follow everyone who says that they are a scholar. He says, no, the ones who fit this criterion. He says, and if that individual does not fit that criterion, and they present something from us, he said, be weary of accepting that. So in order to put these lessons that we have learned from the beginning of Muharram about the mission of Imam Hussein, the appropriate type of leadership, in order to put that into practice, then we must, again, look to whom we are receiving our knowledge from. From whom are we taking our knowledge and our education and understanding about the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Our education and understanding about the statements of the Prophet and the Ahlul Bayt alayhim afdalu salatu wasalam. Karbala was about that. If the religion, if the Quran and the teachings of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, if they were taken from the correct source, then we would not have Karbala. We would not have Karbala. But because, again, there was this divide and to some extent some confusion, if it was the planned confusion or just people really became confused, what is the source of knowledge? From whom should we take our understanding of religion? And it created the situation that led up to Karbala. The conclusion of, again, that discourse and this understanding, so that we can really see how to practically put the lessons that we started teaching since the beginning of Muharram, how do we put that into practice? How does it become something practical for us? It becomes practical by the understanding of verse 12 of Surah Al-Muharram. Verse 10 and verse 11, read these verses tonight. Reflect upon the discussion that happened between the prophets and those who denied the authority. What was the response of the prophets? Yes, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He blesses some servants over others. We do not bring this authority or any authority except for by the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And they also state that, and we are, those who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have blessed are from His servants. And we rely upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we mentioned that one of the characteristics of those individuals who are proper leaders, that they rely upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They exemplify the best and the highest trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Likewise, they exemplify the highest state of Iman. After understanding that discourse in verse 10 and 11 of Surah Al-Ibrahim, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He presents a third, perhaps discourse, or at least the individual who states that he or she follows the prophets. Because this is the discourse in verse 12, is of one who does not object to the authority of the prophets. Even if they challenge, and I'm not saying that they don't challenge, no, you can ask a question. Ask questions. In fact, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, He says, فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلُ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنْتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. Ask. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's not saying that you follow blindly. No, you ask your question. You find the answer to your questions, to your queries. All of the Ahlul Bayt, from the Prophet, from Imam Ali to Imam Zaman, Ajjal Farajul Sharif, alayhi salatu wasalam, they should ask. Several of the Imams, they said, if we say anything, ask us where that statement is in the Quran. Where is it in the Quran? He says, and we will show you. So when we understand leadership in this way, when we understand and we have accepted that yes, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has provided for us leadership. He has delegated the prophets. He has delegated the Imams. The Imams have, again, defined for us in the time of our quotation who we should follow, what characteristics she will look for in a leader. Then our question and our vision should be what is stated in verse 12 of Surah Ibrahim. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَا لَنَا أَلَّا نَتَوَكَّلَ عَلَى اللَّهِ وَقَدْ هَدَانَا سُبُلَنَا. This is a question that we should all ask ourselves, that if we're sitting here, if we are saying that we are followers of Rasulullah, if we are saying that we are followers of Ahlul Bayt alayhim afdalu salatu wasalam, that we follow their guidance, then this is the question that we should constantly ask ourselves, especially when it comes to this time, in a time of ghaiba, in a time that we are waiting for the Imam of our time. And they are left behind for us a criterion that look for leadership in this manner. So the question Allah presents that why? Why should we not rely upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and He has guided us to our path? And this is I think a very eloquent translation of the Quran that is presented. Why should we not rely upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when He is the one, or knowing that He is the one who has guided us to our path? But if we want to take this statement and this question and put it in very common terms, it will probably be translated or understood in this terms: that what is wrong with me that I haven't relied upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Ma lana, that what is wrong with me that I haven't relied, I haven't trusted in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Knowing that He has guided me to this path. He has guided me to understand and to accept that He has delegated prophets in order to guide us. That He has delegated Imams in order to guide us. And then the Imams have given us a criterion which to follow in the time of the occultation. So what is my issue that I haven't understood, or I have not followed that which I should have followed? But I know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's guided me. Alhamdulillah, I think many of us here, perhaps a majority who are in attendance, are those who may have embraced Islam or embraced the path of Ahlul Bayt alayhim afdalu salatu wasalam when they were perhaps on some other religion before. Or if they were born that way, born in a family of who followed the Ahlul Bayt alayhim afdalu salatu wasalam, again, even at the point of an adolescence, at the point of maturity, one had to embrace, again, the guidance that was given. Some have left it. But there was a decision that was made in either case, whether a person was born as a Muslim, born as a follower of Ahlul Bayt, or completely made a 360-degree turn from one religion to another, from one theological perception to another. But nonetheless, in that embracing, of the path of Ahlul Bayt alayhim afdalus salam, there must have been questions that a person had. That why this and not something else? What is it that the Prophet and his Ahlul Bayt alayhim afdalus salam has provided us that I am certain that I am guided upon the right path? This is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He wants us to do. He wants us to question and find the answers. When Imam Ali alayhi salatu wasalam, when he was in the midst of the battle of Siffin, they said that one Bedouin came up to Imam Ali and he says, why do we have to believe that there's one God? One of Imam Ali's companions, he said, don't you see the Imam, he's busy, we're in the middle of a war. And you're coming and you're asking that why we have to believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is one? And this is someone who, again, the Bedouin who claimed La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. But he was like, why? Why is Allah one? I want to understand. So when the companion of Imam Ali became upset, he says, we're in the middle of the battle. He says, we are here on this battlefield because of this question. He says, and I want him to ask this question. Everyone should ask this question. He says, and I am here in order to respond to this question. My action, my every move, my position, my stance in this war, he says, is because of this question. And in order to give the best answer to this question. This, in some sense, it gives us at least one criterion, one thing that we can do practically. And that is to ask questions. That is to challenge those who are imparting knowledge to us. And not take it at face value. At no time did the Prophet or the Imams ever state to take whatever we say as face value. He said, if you ask, we will explain. And they will explain based on your ability also to understand. Sometimes, yes, there are certain aspects of a question that you may not understand, but they will respond based on your ability to understand. But nonetheless, ask them. And I'm particularly emphasizing this because one of the question and answers that we had, sessions that we had, one individual said, I don't want to seem that I'm challenging you. No, challenge those who ask the question. And never fear to ask your question. And actually, through asking one's questions, then you will actually understand that which individuals you follow and which you don't. You will understand who knows and who does not know. And even those who know, who may not have the answer, they will say, well, I don't know. As Allama Tabatabai, again, one of the most learned scholars that we, commentator of the Quran, philosopher, mystic, very well-rounded in his studies. Once an individual came to him after one of his classes and he said, I have a couple of questions. So Allama Tabatabai says, fine, ask your question. He asked the first question. Allama Tabatabai said, I don't know. He asked the second question. Allama Tabatabai said, I don't know the answer to that. He asked the third question and says, I don't know the answer to that. So then the person said, if you don't know the answer to these things, then what's the difference between you and I? Why should I ask? So Allama Tabatabai, with respect and very good etiquette, that the difference is that I know where to go and find the answer to this question. I can go and I can go to the Quran, I can go to the hadith of Ahlul Bayt and find the answer to your question. I don't know it off the top of my head at the moment, but I can go find it. I can research it, I can present it to you. He says, so the difference is that you don't know where to go and get it. Because he wasn't someone who had studied analysis. He says, you don't have access. He says, but I have access, and if you want, I can research the answer to your question, and I can present it to you. So, but you will have to come back later. Rather than pretend that he knew, and this is Ahmed Tabatabai, who studied for years in the house. By asking our questions, by challenging those who are presenting to us what the Quran means, what the Ahlul Bayt alayhim afdalus wasalam have stated, at that point we will understand that is that individual someone that we should be following or not. And that's the meaning of this question. What is my issue that I don't put my trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Don't put my trust in that criterion which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has established. This is not something what scholars have established. No, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala establishes. That individual who is a leader, as he states, he has created some, وَجَعَلْنَاهُمْ مَئِمَّةً يَهْدُونَ بِأَمْرِنَا. He has created some who are leaders who guide by the command, our command. And what is the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? The Quran. The life and the traditions of Rasulullah and his Ahlul Bayt alayhim afdalus salatu wasalam. But have we trusted in that? Have we trusted in that? That's the question. Although we know that God, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He has guided us. وَلَنَصْبِرَنَّ عَلَى مَا أَذَيْتُمُونَا. And we remain patient. How come we have not remained patient in face of that which, again, those who have doubted, those who have challenged, those who create suspicion with regards to leadership of the Prophet, leadership of the Imams, leadership of those who the Imams have stated in the time of occultation that this is the criterion which you follow. So how can we not remain patient in face of the antagonism, ma adaytumuna, with regards to that guidance that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has provided? And patience, as we mentioned, is of three types we mentioned before. And of course the leaders, they exemplify that patience. As-sabru indal musiba, patience in face of trials and calamities. Patience, as-sabru ala ta'a, patience in order to remain within the obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Was-sabru anil ma'asiyah, and patience to remain aloof from sinning and disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is a question that we need to two questions that we need to constantly ask ourselves. That what is my issue? What has made me not trust in that authority that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has set forth? And the criterion which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has set forth for leadership. What has made me doubt and not trust in that? What has made me impatient in face of the antagonism that such leadership is faced with? وَعَلَى اللَّهِ يَتَوَكَّلِ الْمُتَوَكِّلُونَ. And upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala do those who are mutawakkil, those who are trusting. They trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As we mentioned, that tawakkul, let's say, is the key to iman. The key to iman, the key to faith, and again, and rising in the ladder of faith and understanding in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is something that Imam Hussein, again, this idea and this concept of leadership, the authority that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed in the Prophet, in the Ahlul Bayt alayhim afdalus wasalam. This is something that he emphasized throughout his journey. As we mentioned from the beginning, we mentioned examples at that time. But near the end of his journey, on a night similar to this, which is a night of, they call it Tasu'ah, the eve of Ashura. When Imam Hussein alayhi wasallam, he gathered his companions around him, Imam Zayn al-Abidin alayhi wasallam, he said that he went to hear that, what did Imam Hussein want to say to his companions? That why is he gathering them at this time? So Imam Zayn al-Abidin, he narrates that when Imam Hussein, he gathered his companions, the family members of Ahlul Bayt alayhim afdalus wasalam, to inform them that tomorrow is certain death. And in this night, I am relieving you of your allegiance, that the army that has amassed on the other side, they want me. So tomorrow, if you leave, you go into the villages, you take yourselves, and once you go, he says, also take one of the members, each of you take one of the members from my household. Take them with you when you leave. So for example, someone take Zainab, someone take Sophia, someone take one of the members of my household, take them with you, and you will all be safe, and I will stand alone by myself. He says, and once they finish, then they will not come after you. They only want me. So Imam Zayn al-Abidin said that Imam Hussein, he mentioned in this statement, in his khutbah, after he praised Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says, Ahmedullah wa akramana. He praises Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and oh Allah, you are the one, akramtana bin nabuwa, that you're the one who has blessed us with prophethood in our household, in our lineage. Again, the Imam, in these final moments, he's pointing out the lineage, the authority, appropriate authority that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed that authority. You've blessed our household with nabuwah. And this is, again, their ties, because they are warathatul anbiya. The Imams, they are the inheritors of the prophets. Akramtana bin nabuwah wa allamtana al-Qur'an. And you're the one who has taught us Qur'an, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Qur'an was revealed to Rasulullah. The Ahlul Bayt were in the house in which the revelation was being revealed, and they had first-hand access to Rasulullah to be taught the Qur'an and understand the Qur'an. وَفَقَّحْتَنَا فِي الدِّينِ. And you're the one who has made us firm, made us those who have knowledge in depth about our religion. So again, these are the characteristics of someone who is an appropriate leader. Again, he's following in that lineage of authority, either directly delegated by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or by those who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has delegated. They have pointed out. They have knowledge of Qur'an. They have in-depth knowledge about their deen. So the Imam is pointing this out time and time again. Even as his companions, they went forth. When he stood alone in Karbala, he pointed this out, that who are those who are in a position of authority? One of the interesting examples of this that stood out in the event of Karbala, and that is when Imam Hussein alayhi salatu salam, he wanted to send his own family out into the battlefield. This is after all of the companions of Imam Hussein had been martyred. When it was time for the Ahlul Bayt, the family of Rasulullah, to go forth to raise the banner of justice, the first person that Imam Hussein he sent out was his son Ali al-Akbar. When Ali Akbar, when he was going onto the battlefield, Imam Hussein, he raised his hands and he looked up to the sky. He says, "Oh Allah, Allahumma ashhad ala ha'ula al-qawm." That, "Oh Allah, be my witness and bear witness over those who oppose me, over those who are standing and who have killed my companions. Bear witness, O Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. أنه برز إليهم غلام أشبه الناس خلقا وخلقا ومنطقا برسولك." That bear witness that now an individual is going forth, a young man is now gone unto the battlefield, who is the one who resembles most in his demeanor, in his look, even in his speech, his voice, it resembles most like Rasulullah. Imam Hussein said that whenever we wanted to remember Rasulullah, that after the demise of Rasulullah, Imam Hussein, he says, whenever we wanted to remember my grandfather, Rasulullah, we would look at Ali al-Akbar. Whenever we wanted to remember how the voice of Rasulullah sound, we would talk and speak to Ali Akbar. And so now this individual who is like a replica of Rasulullah, he is one who looks like Rasulullah, he is going into the battlefield. According to some narrations and some accounts of what happened, they said that some people began to pull back and begin to actually flee from the battlefield. Some had said that Rasulullah, he has come to fight us himself. And this is perhaps why Ali Akbar, that when he was going forth and he saw that those individuals were pulling back, he began to recite, "In tankuruni fa'ana binu Haydara." He says, if you deny me, if you are running from me, then know that I am the son of Haydar, the son of Amir al-Mu'mineen, Haydar. Ana Ali ibn al-Husayn ibn Ali. I am Ali. He's letting them know that I am not Rasulullah. I am Ali, the son of Hussein, who was the son of Ali. They said Ali Akbar, he went forth to fight these enemies, also stating that Nahnu wa bayt al-awla bin Nabi. Yes, our family is the closest individuals to Rasulullah. Adribukum bisayfi daraba ghulamin hashamiyan alawi. That I am fighting also like the fight of my grandfather, like Amir al-Mu'mineen. That yes, when I fight, when I come into the battlefield, that my sword is like the sword of Amir al-Mu'mineen. It says that Ali Akbar, he went forth and he fought, slaying the enemies of the Ahlul Bayt, to the point that Ali Akbar, at one point, he returned back to Imam al-Hussein. He says, "Ya abati, qad qatali thiqal al-hadith." That, oh my father, that the chainmail that I'm wearing, that it is weighing me down, and I am thirsty. Is there anything to drink? Can I have just a little water? Then I will go back into the battlefield. Imam Hussein, he said, he began to cry. He told Ali Akbar, he says, be patient, my son, be patient. Go back and face the enemy, for soon you will meet your grandfather. Soon you will be with your grandfather in paradise. And he will give you drink there. And once he gives you drink, there will never be any thirst after that. Said Ali Akbar, he returned back to the battlefield to face the enemies of Ahlul Bayt, alayhim afdalu salatu wassalam, to face the enemy, to fight. And at one point, Imam Hussein, he heard the cry of Ali Akbar. He heard the words, Ya Abata, Assalamu alayk, that, oh my father, I give my final salutation. Hada Jaddi Rasulullah. يقرئك السلام. He said that Ali Akbar from the battlefield, he said these words that, peace be upon you, my father. These are the last salutations, that here I now see my grandfather Rasulullah. I see my grandfather and he is giving his salams to you. He is saying, عَجَّلِ الْقُدُومِ إِلَيْنَا. He's saying that hurry. He's telling you, father, to hurry to him, to hurry to the Ahlul Bayt. Hurry, your father Ali is waiting, your mother Fatima is waiting for you, so hurry unto us. They said to Imam Hussein, he went out into the battlefield and he fought the enemies from around Ali Akbar. And then he got off of his horse, he stood and knelt by Ali Akbar. He put the head of Ali Akbar in his lap and he says, oh Allah, that Allahumma qatal man qataluk, oh Allah, kill those who have killed this son of mine, who have killed Ali al-Akbar. It said that when Imam Hussein, he took the body of Ali Akbar back to the tents, the women and children, they were crying, Wa ya Ali, wa Ali, wa Muhammad, inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون. اللهم بحق هذه المجلس الحسينية اغفر ذنوبنا واستر عيوبنا واشفي مرضانا وارحم أمواتنا وقضي حوائجنا وعجل فرج مولانا صاحب العصر والزمان وجعلنا من أعوانه وانصاره والمستشهدين بين يديه وتحت لوائه. O Allah, by the blessing and the right of this majlis and morning ceremony for Imam Hussein, forgive our sins, cover our shortcomings, cure those who are ill among us, among our friends and family. Have mercy upon our deceased ones. Grant us our needs. Hasten the reappearance of Imam al-Zaman. Make us among his helpers, his companions, and those who will sacrifice our lives for him. And for the welfare of the Ummah, the believers in their entirety, for the welfare of the oppressed people around the world, and for the hastened reappearance of Imam al-Zaman, so that he may establish justice in this world as it has been fulfilled, as it has been filled with corruption, tyranny, and oppression. Let us recite Amma Yajib. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Amma yujibu al-mudtarra idha da'ahu yakshifu as-su'. Amma yujibu al-mudtarra idha da'ahu yakshifu as-su'. عمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء. عمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء. عمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء. ماتوا حسين. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.